the best way to prepare for a listing appointment is to ask the seller some questions. Some people call it to pre-qualify the seller.
And do you just automatically go out? Your eyes got really big and you looked at me like, that's ridiculous. Like, why would I ever do that, right?
Well, some people would say, yes, I'm going to list my home with you. And I would go over and ruin the presentation because I was presenting in a way where it wasn't conducive to taking a lot of listings. I've seen agents that are like, dude, they said, yes, they're going to list their home with me. And then I ask them when they come back, they're like, no, I didn't take it. And I'm like, well, what happened? You can still ruin the presentation. At that point, you're just trying to increase the chances.
Welcome back, Novello Nation, to another episode of the Aaron Novello podcast. On this episode, myself and my boy, Mr. Jose Luis Morales, are going to have an in-depth conversation about how to prepare for the listing appointment, right? And what I'm aware of is, preparing for a listing appointment is critically important if you want to be effective and efficient. According to the Association of Realtors, if an agent goes on 100 listing presentations, they only actually take 20 listings. And that's pretty interesting. It's only a 20% conversion ratio. Now, my personal conversion ratio is about 80, 85%. I know Jose's is similar. And, we worked on that over an extended period of time as he was coming up in the game. And now he's a listing machine. So, I'm excited to have this conversation and add value to the community. How about you, Jose?
I'm excited too, because I think it'll help a lot of people. I remember back in the day, bro, when I used to get a listing appointment, I would be so nervous because I didn't know how to prepare for the listing appointment, or I didn't know what to do at the listing presentation. So I think that this will help a lot of people, bro. So
yeah, 100%. What comes to mind, I remember having conversations with you, when we first started working together, where you felt like, man, I'm like half the presentations I'm having to go back a second time, right? And it was just not it was like inefficient. You had the hustle, you had the will. It was just that you're spinning your wheels a lot, right? Going on a lot of these presentations and not getting the desired outcome. And once we made a little tweaks, right? One of them specifically being pre-qualifying upfront so we can gather as much information as possible and also use the pre-qualification in preparation for going on the listing presentation as a mechanism to sell, which we'll get into and kind of assumptively close. Then you started to convert at higher and higher levels. So let's walk through this, bro. When somebody reaches out to us or when we're cold calling and we set an appointment, talk to me about, the preparation that goes into that. So when somebody says like, yeah, come over, do you just like run over right away and you're like, all right, cool, I'll see you at 3?
No, not at all. And I think that's what I used to do at the very beginning. Like somebody would call me or I'd call them. They're like, hey, I want to sell my property. And I'd want to go over there immediately. But the best way to prepare for a listing appointment is to ask the seller some questions. Some people call it to pre-qualify the seller. Some people call it like an input. I've heard it like, they're like, oh, I have an input form where I ask the sellers a series of questions. So basically, the best way that I learned how to prepare for a listing appointment is to pre-qualify the seller, ask them a series of questions about their situation so that you know what you can do to be a best service to them. So it starts off with a transition. Like let's say that you set the appointment. So there's a 5-step listing process, and we went over that in our last video. Step number 1, you set the appointment. Incoming call, outbound call, set the appointment. Step number 2, you pre-qualify them, meaning you ask them that series of questions. Step number 3, you send a pre-listing package, meaning some information, which we'll cover in this video. Step number 4, you call to confirm. And step number 5, you present. You follow this process, it increases the chances of you taking the listing, and it also improves your listing presentation ratio, meaning based on how many listings you're going on, how many of you're taking, and how many of them are you taking on the first try. So the pre-qualification starts with transitioning from setting the appointment to transitioning to the script. This is the way I usually like to do it. I say, well, look, Aaron, before I come out, there are a number of questions I need to ask you. I just want to make sure that I'm fully prepared for our meeting and I could really be a best service to you. Is it okay if I ask those questions now? And my intention in asking that in that manner is that the series of questions is really all about them and helping them achieve their goals and helping them get closer to whatever it is that they want to do. So, Aaron, walk us through, man, what happens after you transition, bro?
Yeah. So, and I love that. And as I'm getting ready to walk through, I'm more than happy to do that. When I asked you, like, hey, when somebody calls and just says like, or you're make an outbound call and you book an appointment, do you just automatically go out? Your eyes got really big and you looked at me like, that's ridiculous. Like, why would I ever do that? Right. So it's important for people to understand that when me and Jose are saying that we do this every single time, it is absolutely every single time without exception. Right. Because in my professional experience, in those times when I imagine that I was going to make an exception, it never ends up working out in my favor, and it's not a productive use of time. So if we're either making outbound calls or it's an inbound call and we book an appointment, in preparation for connecting, Jose, I just have a couple really quick questions to ask you just to make sure that I'm fully prepared and I could be of the best assistance to you and your family. And I'll be brief because I know your time is valuable. So notice there, like I didn't ask permission. I'm like, we're doing this and I'm going to be quick, right? So then we can transition. And they're like, sure, right? And in my mind, the way that I'm thinking about this in pre-qualification, I think a lot of people use pre-qual in the wrong way. They use it as disqualification, right? And that's not really the purpose of pre-qual. The purpose of pre-qual is to gather information, the who, what, where, when, why, and how with regards to this prospective move. And also use it as a mechanism to gather, potential objections that may come up, things that you have to be prepared for when you meet with them, whether they're going to meet with another agent, whether they're going to ask you about the professional fee or the length of the agreement or things of that nature, or what are you going to do to market the home? And then also a little bit more advanced as we start to assumptively close and move things forward. So once we say that phrase to transition, then they're like, sure. And then I start to systematically ask questions. And in everybody's mind that's watching this, I want you to think about this as though there's like a door and it leads to another room. And we don't leave one door until we don't leave one room until we are complete in one of the rooms. And what the rooms are motivation, time, and decision makers. So what's the specific motivation? So once they say okay to asking, sure, like it's okay, ask me questions. So the first question I have, Jose, is I'm very familiar with your geographic area. I'm sure your home is lovely, right? Hopefully I'm not being too straightforward. Was there any particular reason you and your family were even considering selling? And what is that question around, Jose?
It's all about the motivation right there. That's getting into the motivation now. What it comes up to me when we talk about motivation, and this is what where some people get caught up, they'll read a script and the script will say, when you sell this home, where are you moving to next? But like, if you already talked about that in the appointment, like you may not have to like say, hey, Jose, like when you sell this property, where are you moving to next? Because they might be like, Jose, look, I literally just told you like 3 seconds ago that I'm moving to Arizona. Instead, you can rephrase the question and say, well, look, Jose, I know that when we spoke, you were kind enough to mention to me that you're looking to move to Arizona because you want to be out and be closer to family. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yes, that is correct.
Perfect. And then right behind that, to dig into motivation, a question like, well, and tell me, because my job is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. Is it an option for you, Jose, to not sell this home and still move? Like maybe like rent it or just keep it as a secondary home? And then quiet. Because I don't want to leave that room of motivation yet until I'm clear that the motivation is very strong. Because as we're taping this, we're in an environment in which economically things are changing, and it's going to become very, very important. One of the key critical skills that we need as agents is this ability to pre-qualify at a high level and to be able to kind of flesh out 8, 9s, and 10s in motivation. Because if it's not a compelling kind of reason as to why they're going to sell some sort of life event, then they're probably not going to be willing to put up with a difference in market dynamics and perhaps a difference in their expectations as to how much they're going to be receiving on their home versus what they could have got, 6 to 12 months ago.
Now, this is another thing, like you have to be listening to when you're having the conversation with their client. Like let's say in the appointment, they tell you, oh, this is a rental property for me, or this is a property that is an estate. You're not going to say, Jose, once you sell this property, where are you moving to next? Because that doesn't make any sense, And I hear that all the time.
Do you remember when we were like Yeah. Do you remember we were role playing one time and I was like, Jose, and you're like, what? I'm like, you have a really good brain, bro. And you're like, I'm like, you should use it. And you were like, whoa, because you were doing that.
Because you get so caught up in like, okay, what does the script say next? Instead of like, okay, he already told me that this is an investment property for him and that, or that this is an estate. So you have to ask yourself, what you're really looking for is the motivation. And there's different ways to dig for this motivation. So if I'm talking to somebody that owns a rental property, instead of saying, where are you moving to next? I'm going to say, well, once you sell this property, are you looking to reinvest the proceeds into something else? Or are you just looking to cash out on this investment? What am I looking for right there? I'm looking for motivation. So if they say, I'm looking to reinvest the proceeds, I may ask like, okay, great. And once you do that, are you looking to reinvest those proceeds here locally? Or are you looking to move that money somewhere else? No, I'm actually looking to move it out of California. Okay, great. Now I've got some sort of sense as to what the motivation is. I can continue to dig deeper on that. Or if they say, no, look, I'm just looking to cash out, you may ask like, okay, great. And if you don't mind me asking, like why cash out on the property and why not just keep the property as a rental property? I mean, or you can say like, well, Jose, gosh, it sounds like a great rental property. I mean, it sounds like it's been producing tons of cash flow for you. Like, why not keep it versus cashing out? And then I'm like, well, look, I'm really tired of being the landlord. I'm tired of like having to manage this property. I want to simplify my life. Boom. What does that give you? Motivation. Starts to give you the reason why they want to do what they want to do.
That's exactly right. And when you break that word down, motivation, it's motive to take action. It's a reason for doing something. And it was interesting because as you're speaking, those exact things were coming up for me. It's like, well, I imagine this has been a really good rental for you. And I know the rental market's, been very strong over the last 12 months. So hopefully I'm not being too straightforward. Was there any particular reason that you wanted to cash out versus just continuing to be a landlord? And then quiet. And they'll tell you, well, like I got maxed out depreciation. I got to cash out and move on to something else. Okay, cool. And is your intention to do a 1031 exchange and then repurchase something else? Or are you just cashing out completely? So what me and Jose are demonstrating to you is we want to get very, very clear on the why first, motivation, right? The motive to take action, the reason why somebody's doing something. And personally, I'm not going to move on to my next line of questioning, which is around time, until I'm clear on that.
The other thing I wanted to point out, bro, is I've seen other scripts, and this is not me talking bad about anything else, but the way that we're teaching you guys to do it is I've seen other scripts that are like, the first question that they start off with is, if what I say makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident that I can sell your home, are you planning to list your home with me? And sometimes that's too direct of a question for some people. I remember when I would ask that, people would be like, well, Jose, look, I haven't even met you. I don't even know what you look like. I don't know anything about you. And it may come off like it's too strong. So the reason I like to start off as motivation is it gives me a little bit of time to better understand their situation. I'm still going to ask the question, if what I say makes sense, are you planning to list it with me? I'm just going to ask it at a different time instead of asking it at the very beginning, because it gives me a little bit of time to fully understand their situation and almost like make it more about them than about me.
100%.
And that's what you want to do.
And that's the key right there, is that it flips it, right? When I begin to ask questions about Jose and what he's looking to accomplish and why, and specifically why it's important to him at this stage in his life that he accomplish a particular goal or objective, what I'm doing is I'm coming from a place of contribution where my intention is to serve. If I lead with a question that's about taking, it's about me, that is very indicative of what my intention is. My intention is to take. It's not to serve. So we're still going to ask that question. We're just going to ask it in a different way that's more palatable, and we're going to ask it towards the end of the conversation, right? And I think that's a critical point for people to be aware of, because the tendency for a lot of people is to lead with I, me, and what's in it for me. And I think that's backwards. And to your point where it's like, hey, if what I say makes sense and you feel comfortable, you plan to listen to me when I see you tonight at 6. That's like going on a blind date, knocking on the door and being like, hi, are we going to smash tonight? It's like, what? Like, I don't even know you, bro. Like, we didn't even have a conversation. We haven't gone out to dinner yet. Like we didn't even relax. You know what I'm saying? You got to build a little bit of rapport first, right?
Yeah.
So, we wouldn't do that in other areas. So it's like, well, why are we doing it here? Right. So once we're clear on motivation, and we're asking a lot of digging questions around motivation, and a key phrase there is, my intention is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. So is it an option for you to not sell this home and still move, maybe like rent it out or move? Because I want to get that clarity. I see a lot of agents spend so much time spinning their wheels on people that aren't certain about what they want to do yet. And what's true is that the bad leads, or warm leads, okay leads, they hide the great ones. They hide the people that are like, Jose, I'm definitely selling. I want to get on the market in 30 days. It's not an option for me not to sell. Okay, great. We're dropping everything. We're going to move things around, and we're going to meet with you because it's very clear that, you have a need that we can service. So once we're clear on motivation, then we start to move to time, right?
I wanted to add a couple things on the motivation before we move on to time. Understanding the motivation can actually help you prepare for the appointment. I'll give you guys a couple of quick examples. Let's say that they say that they're doing a 1031 exchange. You can dig a little bit deeper. You can say, well, great, do you already have a 1031 exchange company, or would you like for me to recommend somebody? Boom. What are you doing right there? You're adding value to their situation. Adding value. If they say, great, I'm moving to Texas. Great. Do you already have an agent out there? Would you like for me to make a recommendation out there? So whenever you're going out to the appointment, now you've got all this information, and it's helped you better prepare for that appointment and add value. Now you're going to that listing presentation, not from what can I take from them? It's like, how am I adding value? So you add enough value at the presentation, you're going to be the one that ends up taking the listing because you're adding value. So when you're digging for the motivation, pay attention to things where you can add value for them. And also pay attention. Yeah, and also pay attention to things like, for example, like if they say, well, I've got this concern or that concern, those are going to be problems that you can help them find solutions to. So for example, if they say, well, look, I need to relocate out of the area, maybe you can help them find a great agent. If they say, well, look, I'm kind of concerned because I don't have the property ready to come on the marketplace, maybe you can help them prepare the property ready for sale. So it's going to help you prepare for the appointment and what to bring to the appointment and how to present at the appointment as well too.
Agreed. Yeah. I just went on a listing presentation this week. She interviewed 4 people, hired your boy. Let's go. And it was interesting because as we were speaking, she told me that she was making a move across country. I said, great. And, I know that that's a big move. Do you need any help or assistance with actually like boxing stuff up and shipping it, or maybe putting stuff into a pod? She's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I said, great. Well, what I'll do is I'll do a group text, just so you know, anybody that I refer you to, there's no financial incentive for me to do that. These are just people that we work with all the time and know and trust. And because we refer them so frequently, they treat our clients exceptionally well and give them very reasonable rates and service. So I will connect you guys in a group text, and then you guys could take it from there. And if it works out, great. If not, we can perhaps refer you to somebody else. Would that be helpful or useful to you? Oh yeah, that'd be great. So to your point, as we're asking questions around the move and finding out motivation, it's also a way to try to determine how you can add value above and beyond just helping them transact. So what me and Jose are talking about here is moving away from being transactional to being fiduciary. Transactional is just like, hey, I help you transact, I help you buy and sell. Fiduciary is I help you solve problems, and then I guide, right? And those are 2 different things. And I think the marketplace increasingly is beginning to demand fiduciary versus just transactional. Because if an agent's just going over, they're saying, we're going to take pictures, put a lockbox on, some flyers, and put an MLS, and hope and wish and pray that it sells, you're not adding that much value, and anybody can do that. So to Jose's point, it's really, going above and beyond that. So then we start to shift into time. And the question is why is time important? Well, for those people that are listening, how many people do you speak to and they say, yeah, I want to sell in like 6 months? And you're like, yay, cool. But, at the same time, who would you rather be speaking to? Somebody who wants to sell in 6 months, or somebody who wants to sell in 30 to 45 days? So I need to know this before I go see them, instead of running out, getting all dressed up, going in a car and being like, I think I can, and all excited about the presentation. And then you sit down with them and they're like, yeah, we're not going to do anything for 6 to 12 months. We just wanted to get an idea of value. So the questioning there sounds something like, ideally, Jose, in terms of what you want, because really that is what's most important, how soon would you like to actually have the home on the market for sale? And that's a quick, straightforward question. And they're going to give you an answer. It's either going to be ASAP, it's going to be in 30 days, it might be in 6 months, but each one of those is going to have a response. And what I'm looking for is a way of creating urgency, right? So let's say they say to me, well, we're thinking like in the next 90 days. Okay, cool. And then just so I know, is there any particular reason that you wanted to wait 90 days? Like was there some sort of factor that was inhibiting you doing so? And they're like, yeah, well, we wanted to get it prepared and this and that. It's like, okay, cool. And let's say that we knew that through no fault of your own or mine, just because of some market dynamics and how things have been changing and interest rates going up, dramatically in a short period of time, that if we made a decision to wait, it could end up affecting how much we can get. Would you be open to moving up your time frame so you could take advantage of current market conditions? Or are you committed to waiting the 90 days and then be quiet? And when you do that, something will come back, right? So I'm always trying to listen for that time frame, and depending on the time frame, trying to figure out if there's a way that we can kind of move up the time frame that would be in their best interest if they're open to it.
It's funny, as you were talking, I was like thinking, like, a lot of people look at time and they're like, well, they don't want to sell in a period of 6 months. Well, have you asked them if they're open to moving up the time frame? And a lot of people think like, well, if they want to sell in 6 months, I'm not going to meet with them now until they're closer to doing it. Or they go out, meet with them, give a full listing presentation, and the people aren't ready to do anything. And then they start shopping you around as well, too. Sometimes they're like, well, that guy said he's going to charge me 6%. That guy said he's only going to sell it for 200,000 or 500,000. 6 months later, the market's completely different than it was today. Now properties are worth 10, 20, 30, 40,000 more, or 10, 20, 30, $50,000 less as well too. So I wrote that down as well too, that you can move up the time frame. What I also wrote down is that get clarification, meaning like sometimes people will say, well, yeah, I like to sell my property in around June time frame. So the way I get clarification on that, when you say June, are we talking about like getting it on the market in June? Or are we talking about like actually having it closed and sold by June? Because those are completely two different conversations, No, I like to have it sold by June. It's May 21st today. That's like in like 9-10 days. That's a completely different conversation. And whenever people tell me their time frame, it's always like, okay, great. Well, I want to do something by July. Okay, when you say July, do you want to be closed by July, or are you talking about getting it on the market by then? And then it's also an opportunity to kind of pitch things. So for example, like if they want to have it on the market by August, you can pitch, well, great. If there was a financial benefit to doing something now versus waiting, meaning market transitioning, is that something that you'd be open to?
My job is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. What's going on, guys? Today, we're going to be going over 4 key phrases that you can be utilizing when having conversations with prospective clients that can help you to get clarity with regards to if this individual has a need that you can service, right? And the faster that you can get clear on that, the more people that you can help, and the more people that you can help, the better service they're going to get, because you're a dedicated professional and you'll be, compensated for helping them. So my name is Aaron Novello. If you're new to this content, I've been a real estate agent over the last 16 years. I've sold over 100 homes a year consecutively for the last decade. I did over 200 deals a year twice, and I have a coaching company where we coach some of the top agents throughout the United States and internationally. I've shared these techniques and strategies with agents all across the country, and they get fantastic results. I want to share them with you as well. The first phrase that we're going to utilize is, my job is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. So if somebody brings up like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe selling my property, that's awesome. My job's to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. I guess I'm curious. And then we start asking some probing questions with regards to underneath what their goals and objectives are. It lets the individual know that you're unattached to the outcome. It's a completely different dynamic, and it dramatically increases the probability that they're going to open up and share what their goals and objectives are and what their real motivation is, and then you can determine if you can actually help or assist them in some way. The second key phrase is, if you don't mind me asking. So if you don't mind me asking, your home's lovely, it's in a great area. Was there any particular reason you were even considering selling it? I recognize that I'm asking, a question that's a little probing. I'm doing it in a respectful manner. So like, if you don't mind me asking, your home's lovely, it's in a great area, I don't need to tell you that. Was there any particular reason you were even considering selling? Third key phrase that you want to utilize is, in terms of what you want, because really that's what's most important. So in terms of what you want, because really that's what's most important, ideally, how soon would you like to make this happen? It's putting the prospective client in its proper position, which is the main event, not you as a real estate agent. And then the fourth key kind of question. So if you had an offer that was very reasonable or acceptable in whatever time frame that you want to give them, 30, 60, 90 days, do you think you would still sell the property, or is your plan to hold on to the property forever? Now, by doing that, when I say, is it to hold on to it forever? It's like we're slamming the door shut on that opportunity. And they may say something like, well, no, we're not going to hold on to it forever. Okay, no problem. So then ideally, in terms of what you want, going back to that other phrase, how soon do you think you'd like to make this sale happen? Well, maybe in the next 9 months or so. Okay, and let's say that we knew that through no fault of your own or mine, if you made a decision to wait, that could end up affecting how much you can get. Would you still want to wait, or would you want to move your timeline up, right? I can continue to keep going down that track because of the answer to that question. It wasn't a definite no. So that question helps me to get to a definite no or a definite yes. If somebody says, well, yeah, I would sell it. Okay, great. Well, just by you saying that demonstrates that we should get together and discuss the options. May I make a suggestion? And then we close for an appointment. Part of the reason why people aren't successful is because of the uncertainty in this business. You can spend hours prospecting. You can spend days, weeks, months prospecting and think you have leads. At the same time, you haven't asked a question that would cause you to get to a definite yes or a definite no. And the okay leads or the not great leads hide the really good and great leads, okay? So my ability to be able to decipher if this is a suspect or a prospect is critically important. Let me ask it this way. If, right, and I'm aware that is an if, you had an offer that was very reasonable, very acceptable in the next maybe 30, 45 days that would allow you to sell this home and make this relocation happen, do you think you would still sell the property, or is your plan to hold on to it forever? So those four phrases, if you can incorporate them into your conversations, I promise you it will lead to an increase in appointments. It'll lead to people opening up to you more. So that way you can find out their real motivation and determine if they have a need that you can actually help them with and service. Ultimately lead to, clients getting better service and you being happy because you're helping more people and being compensated appropriately for that help and that skill. I hope this was very helpful and very useful to you. If it is, be sure to share it with someone that you think, could get some benefit. And also be sure to stay tuned for the next video.
Give it up for Aaron Novello.
How's everybody doing? So I don't know if you guys noticed, but I definitely noticed. I think can you guys hear my voice okay? Yeah. Okay, good. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but I noticed a pattern with the people that are on the panel, which is that almost uniformly, all of them started their career when? During a marketplace beginning to shift and change. Now, anybody besides me noticing that this marketplace is beginning to shift and change? By a show of hands, yes. Properties are sitting on the market longer. Can't hear me? Okay. So properties are sitting on the market longer. We're not getting as many showings. I was talking to Jim at breakfast this morning. He's like, yep, showings have slowed down, right? So what I find very interesting is that oftentimes we begin to imagine, right, that when we see people that are producing those sizable outcomes, that it came very easy and that it wasn't difficult. But we all have challenging times in our life, right? And just like everybody that's on this stage, one of my challenging seasons in life came in 2006 and 2007. So I started selling real estate, and I was at school at the University of Florida, right? Go Gators. And I didn't know what I was doing. So my first calendar year, I made $13,000. Now that is definitely not something people put you on a panel on to talk about. It's definitely not something people would invite you on a podcast to be like, specifically, how did you do that? And it's definitely not something that people would pay you to teach them how to do, right? And then I got this accurate assessment of reality, and I started to think differently and behave differently and learn different skills. And I was on track to do about 60 transactions that next following year. And then my mom had a health event, right? It was an exceptionally serious health event that required my immediate attention and all the family's immediate attention, right? So I shut down my business within a week, gave away all the listings, gave away all the pendings, and moved back home to a brand new marketplace, right? And then the marketplace crashed. Yay, that's a super fun time, right? It completely obliterated and imploded. Now, what's interesting is that during that marketplace beginning to crash in 2007, so that's what we were doing before, right? And then there's this implosion, this complete destruction, annihilation of the market. Now, many of you guys in this room, let me ask you a question. How many people in this room have been selling real estate for less than 5 years by show of hands? Okay, how about less than 10? Okay, good. So what's interesting is probably about 60% of the room has no idea what I'm talking about, right? Neil knows what I'm talking about. Jim knows what I'm talking about, right? So we're imagining, I'm starting to hear things. Are you starting to hear things and noticing like an anxiousness amongst agents and amongst lenders? I'm noticing some heads nodding, yes, right? Anxiousness, imagining that this is like a complete meltdown and explosion. That is not what this is. This is a normal market gyration, a market correction, right? Now, what's underneath that anxiousness? Why do you think people are asking me questions regularly like, hey, Aaron, when do you think the marketplace is going to get better? Hey, when do you think this is going to change? How long is this going to last? What's underneath that? Yes, fear. And do you know why you're afraid? Is because you don't know what to do. Because knowledge equals confidence and ignorance equals fear. And that's really just what's true, is that I'm just not clear on what to do, right? So let me show you what a marketplace completely imploding looks like. Inventory explodes. And I'm talking explosion. I remember in South Florida, we had 22,000 homes on the market in our county. 22,000, right? We're freaking out because inventory went from less than a month's supply to like 2 months supply. That's not what this is, okay? What also happened is that foreclosures skyrocketed. In South Florida, almost like 50% of all transactions were foreclosures, okay? Imagine that. The other thing that happened is that sales came to a screeching halt. They essentially just stopped, right? For a specific amount of time. And prices have gone up exponentially over the last 18 to 24 months, correct? Yeah. Yeah. How many people posted something about, we sold it over 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 asking? How many people did that? Good. Are you going to do a post now that we had to get 3 price reductions to sell it? Is that what we're going to do? So we take credit on that side, but we don't want to take the credit on the other side. But imagine it going in the complete opposite direction. Imagine instead of prices going up 30, 40%, they're going down 30, 40%. Okay? And imagine what that creates for people internally. Imagine the anxiousness and tension that you're beginning to feel now just in a normal marketplace, gyration. Imagine that. It was completely different. Now, I'm also here to tell you that that was the complete defining moment in my career, right? It is absolutely what shaped me as a salesperson because I had to get mentally stronger. Are you noticing now people are starting to mentally break down? I am, right? They're freaking out about what's happening. I had to get mentally stronger. I also had to get skill-wise exceptionally better at what I do. We were talking this morning, and it's like, man, I'm aware that if you've been selling real estate for 5 years or less, you actually don't know how to sell real estate. Because let me ask you a question. How much skill is required in pricing property over the last 24 months? Did you have to be really good at that skill? No. Did you have to be good at negotiating? No. Where's their negotiation if all offers come in ask or higher? That's not negotiating. That's just picking the best one. How skilled have you had to be in pre-qualification? Nothing. Somebody raises their hand and says, hey man, I want to sell my home. Great. What price you want to put at? This one? Let's give it a shot. And then it would sell. Now I'm wondering, have sellers been able to be obstinate, stubborn, and completely unreasonable over the last 24 months? Yeah, and they were rewarded for it. They were like, no, you know what? I really want to try like 50,000 or higher. You're like, I don't think that's realistic. And then they would get $70,000 higher, right? So that environment forced me to become faster, quicker, stronger, and turned me into this person that is talking to you right now, right? And from that came 2,000 homes sold in my career. Then came teaching people how to sell 100 homes a year for the last 11, 12 years in a row. Came speaking, and then came being in a position to elevate others to do likewise. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take the time that I have allotted to share with you specifically what I know is required in order to not just survive in any market, but to thrive in any market. How many people are up for that? Say aye. Aye. Good. So you heard from people on the stage, and I know that it can seem overwhelming because the numbers are gargantuan. How many people are overwhelmed by those numbers? Does that sound ridiculous? Yeah. Yeah, more people should have their hands raised because that's amazing what these people are doing. And that can seem really overwhelming. So what I want to do is I want to distill down actual tactical information that you can be utilizing in order to thrive in any market, okay? And the formula is the following. And this comes from a book called Principles, written by a guy named Ray Dalio, okay? So Ray owns the largest hedge fund in the world. He's one of the richest guys on planet Earth. And like Eric was mentioning, in order to get proximity to people, do I have to physically be in their presence? No. Imagine if Bill Gates said to you, you were on a plane with him, right? And you just happen to be on a plane, you're like, oh man, it's Bill Gates. And Bill leaned over to you, he's like, listen, I'm gonna tell you everything I know, everything I learned, all my mistakes, and you just gotta give me $25 for the next 8 hours. Would you be like, nah bro, it's a little too much? No, you would totally do that. But here's what's awesome, is because information now is completely almost free, you can sit down with Bill Gates for 8 hours and read his book and learn everything that he knows. Isn't that interesting? But what's super fascinating is in America, the average human reads 1 book a year and it's fiction. It's not even real. Isn't that interesting? Right? So Ray wrote this book called Principles, and you can get access to the way Ray thinks. And he said something in that book that really struck me. He said you need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, yeah, that's cute. That's a little clever, right? And then I moved on. But the more I thought about that, the more I marinated on this idea you need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome, the more I found it to be profoundly true, because I have to see something for what it is. Not the way I would like it to be, or I imagine it is, or some influencer says it is, but the way it actually is. Because then and only then can I make decisions in accordance with what's true, and that'll increase the chances that I'll get what I want. So let me give you an example. Let's say we're all here and we're all excited and we do some affirmations and incantations and we all get pumped. And then I'm like, let's say there was a raging river out here. I'm like, we're gonna swim against this river, guys. It's gonna be awesome. You can do it. I think I can. I think I can. I'm a great swimmer. I'm a great swimmer. And we try to swim against the current. What's gonna happen? I'm sorry? Yeah, we're gonna drown. That's exactly what's gonna happen, right? Versus if we were to look at that raging river and instead say like, okay, here's the deal. There's a little like canoe over here. We can jump in the canoe. We can go with the river. And then what's going to happen? I'm going to get to the ultimate destination. So I need to see things as they actually are. Not the way I would like it to be or somebody else tells me it is, but the way it actually is. He also gave another formula in that book, and it was a dream plus dealing with reality plus determination equals a successful outcome. So what is the outcome that we're all after in this room? Anybody? Come on, guys. Am I in the right room? What is the outcome that we're after? Okay, do you guys want millions of dollars like these guys people have, right? 100%. So that's the outcome we're after. We're after deals and income. So what do you think is the hardest part of that equation for most people? Is it the dream? No. Why? Everybody has a dream. If I was to go around this table, everybody has a dream. Different people in it, maybe different situations, maybe different circumstances, different trips we like to take, whatever. But everybody has a dream. Is it determination? Everybody has various levels of determination, right? When I speak to people, they're like, oh man, I want what you have, like, right? Super high levels of determination. So what is margin? Margin in life refers to the space between our commitments, responsibilities, and activities, and the limits of our physical, mental, and emotional capacity. Anybody besides me ever felt that there wasn't enough space between your work and other things? I have, for sure. And whenever you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, it's due to a lack of margin. And here's what we need to think about creating more margin. Creating more margin in our lives can help us reduce stress, improve our mental and physical health, increase our productivity and creativity, and allow us to focus on the things that matter most. And those things that matter most could be those intangible things like relationships and stuff, but it also could be the things that matter most in your business. Okay? It's in the margin, guys, is the life that you are all aspiring to accomplish. It's by creating margin for yourself. And there's 3 types of margin. Okay? Money margin, time margin, and energy margin. Now we're going to talk about money first because it's the easiest one to comprehend initially. It's easy for us to think about, right? And then we'll get into time, money, and time margin and energy margin. Yeah, so as I mentioned, whenever we feel burnt out, it's because we lack margin in one of these areas. So like reflect, has there ever been a time where you didn't have margin with money and you felt burnt out or stressed? Yes. Ever been a time where you didn't have margin with time and you felt burnt out or stressed? Yes. Ever been a time when you didn't have margin with energy and you felt kind of run down? And the answer is yes to all of those, right?
Or all 3.
For all 3. Or all 3, that's exactly right. So in the vein of talking about this with regards to money, because that's the first place where we can start, and it's what we've gathered as we've gotten together, 4 times now to have this conversation about creating margin for ourselves and creating freedom. We have to really do the math, and most people are lazy with the numbers or they've never thought about it. So like we were having with that organic conversation with Ben, I was like, all right, well, what is that number? Like, how much is enough? What's the number that if you had it in residual or from multiple different sources that you would no longer work for money? Is it $10,000 a month? Is it $20,000 a month? Is it $30,000 a month? Now, when we first started gathering, my number was 10. And I wasn't even close. I mean, maybe it was like 3 or 4. And here we are, however many years later that is, maybe 2 years later. And last month I made around $27,000, $28,000 in residual income. Okay. So that number's changing. For me now, it's like probably like 50. Like Jose, it's like, all right, you get 50, bro. Like, you do whatever you want. You know what I mean? But think about it. So how much? And then look at how much I need to invest in order to accomplish that goal. So $10,000 a month is $2.4 million. $20,000 a month is 4.8. $30,000 a month, 7.2. $40,000 a month, 9.6. So how much of that do I already have? How much do I need? Like, what's the difference? And when do I want it by? Okay? And then we can start to get real precise and intentional and purposeful about going after it and creating it for ourselves. So margin with money is the difference between what you need and what you have. What I see now is a lot of people are having problems because what they need and what they have are the same. There's no margin, right? Agents, because they increase lifestyle. Now, if you create a situation where what you need and what you have are the same, if anything changes like market dynamics, now you have negative margin. What's another word for negative margin?
Negative debt.
Debt. And then you have to work your way out of it, okay? So, and there are only a few vehicles where we can invest money margin. Okay? One is in attention, which we talked about. There's multiple different ways that you can monetize attention. Jose's done a really good job monetizing attention with ERC. How much money did you make last year with ERC? $200,000, bro, just with affiliate marketing with ERC. Another way to monetize attention is downlines. Another way to monetize attention is, selling products or services. And one of the ways that I've decided to move in that has created a lot of margin for me is this downline example, which we've talked about before, and you guys have seen this, so we can run through it real quickly. It's very, very quickly how quickly you can start to produce meaningful amounts of residual income. So with 6 people that cap, and those people get 1 person and they cap, that's $20,000 a year in residual income, which I'm aware how much was required in us for order to accomplish that in the physical world. It's a lot. Okay? And this is my rev share from the last time we met. Okay? Just getting started. You notice the numbers, 64, right? Cool. About 3,000. I was super excited about it. You gonna take a picture of it? Yeah. See, that's the last mastermind. This is what it has been today, and now it's even bigger than that. It's 128, and the last paid is 15,000. But like, look, guys. And if we go back here, remember, how much do we need in order to get that? In residual. So in other words, I've increased my net worth by about $2.4 million since the last time we met. That's margin, right? And it can happen very, very fast with the right vehicle and with the right approach. So again, I'm not saying like don't invest in properties. I think that that's fine. I just am aware that it's slow. And it's cool. It's a good way to preserve like wealth. So in other words, like I see rev share as a mechanism. It's going to be bigger than everything else that I'm doing, or even the ADUs or wherever Jose's doing. But the way you hedge against that, so it's like, well, let's say somebody says to you like, well, what happens if YouTube goes out of business? Let's say you make $1 million a year on YouTube and YouTube goes out of business. That's a concern, right? Well, how could you hedge against that concern? What could you do?
Reinvest the income.
Huh?
Diversify.
Okay, and how could you do that?
Reinvest the income syndication.
Yeah, or in other things. Yeah, short-term rental syndications, things of that nature. So that's how I see that. So here's what it is now. But look at the history, guys. I don't know if you can see that. So from when I started on 6/30 of 2022, it was 1,000. Look at it grow as it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Every month. And that's in a short period of time, guys. And look at the transaction volume going up. So it's just if you expand your concept of what you think a team is. I have 128 people on the team. They did 51 transactions. I was not involved in any of the management of that. I was not involved in any of the labor of that. You're laughing.
It's true.
It's true. He's like, holy shit. I was not involved.
Right. And this is arguably in a bad market.
In a bad market. Yeah. So I was not involved in any of the management of those 51 deals, not involved in any of the fucking capital requirements.
A lot of stress in those 51.
A lot of stress in those 51 deals. A lot of almost fall aparts. A lot of like, hey, what do I need to do? Like a lot of all of that. And that produced a revenue stream that's equivalent to $2.4 million a year and 6%. This is compounding plus leverage. Does that make sense? The other vehicles that we're messing with, whether it's index funds, that compounds, but it's not leveraged. Real estate, there's a little bit of leverage, right? But the deal is you need massive amounts of capital in order to really to get meaningful amounts of residual, right? So it's fine. I think it's a good wealth preservation tool. And this thing though is the Ferrari, right? Because I don't know anything else that I could be investing in that would show that amount of increase. Guys, that's 100% increase from 1,000 to 10,000, right?
What's the original and adjustment?
Which one?
Like, why does it go initial revenue share adjustment and then final revenue share?
Oh, because they calculate them, and then at the end of the month, based on the time that when they calculated, if there were any other additional deals, yeah, they added in. That's exactly right.
The initials were projected,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is just actual.
Yeah, and this month, because it's not even on the screen, this month was just under 16,000. 16,000, just under $16,000. Yeah, it was like 15,800. Yeah, I don't know, something like that. Who's counting? I don't know. And look at this, compounding plus leverage. So this is from the beginning. It went from 8 to 13 to 19 to 29, 56, 63, 69, 76. Now notice too what's happening here. I'm not actually, this is me.
This is like a numbers analyzer, basically?
Yeah, well, this is Lars's. Yeah, he sent it to me. So I don't want to, look at my butt, but like, this is my efforts, which is on the one line. So notice, like I only brought in like 3, and then I brought in 2, and then I brought in 3, and then I guess like 7, and then only 3. But look at what's happening underneath. Do you see how for one input you get multiple outputs? And if you look at the cumulative of what it's growing by per month, it has different, like, it jumps some months, but if you look at, like, it's probably between like 15-ish%, right? But what does that mean? Let's do the math on that. If something's growing at 15% per month, what does that mean? What happens in 7 months, 8 months? I'm sorry?
Doubles.
And what happens in 7 or 8 months after that? It doubles again. So let's play this out for me. So if we're at, this is, again, we can't, like, it's not even keeping up. We just did this and it's already 128, but like 128 means 8 months from now will be what? 256. 8 months from then will be what?
512.
512. 8 months from then will be what?
You know what's happening at the bottom is the net worth.
Yes, I'm going to get to that. I love that you see that. So, but I want you guys really to understand compounding. Because I thought compounding was like, I get 6% returns. Which is cool, it does compound, but it takes 10 years to compound. To double, it takes 10 years to double. This is doubling every 8 months. Think about how big that is. Like, think about the difference in that. And when you look here, you see where it says the equivalent of, oh, that's a good coin. Do I? I fucking know. Do I?
Yeah.
I do, but it doesn't show up on the screen. Yeah, but if you look, let's see, right under,
Third line from the bottom.
The third line from the bottom, which it says the equivalent in net worth. In thousands. So that's the most updated one. You see it right there. It's 15,874. But that's the equivalent of $2.6 million. Guys, I want you to just, for a second, okay, comprehend this for a second. Like, really think about this. It took me 16 years of 70 hours a week, 100 plus homes a year for 10 years in a row, 200 deals a year twice to accumulate this. It took me 1 year to accumulate this because you're in a vehicle that compounds and is leveraged.
Your commission's too high. The last agent we spoke to said that they would do it for less. What do you say? If you freeze, if what comes out of your mouth is stuttering and sputtering, two things will take place. One is you'll end up listing the property for less than what you believe that you're worth. And two, you could end up losing the opportunity to do business with this individual. So it's critical that you know what to say and how to say it and be prepared for it. You have to expect it. I know a lot of us as individuals, when we're consumers, I mean, we'll spend hours looking on Amazon to try to save a few bucks on a product. And here we are in front of someone and they're going to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a commission to have an agent help them with a transaction. So of course, you would expect them to ask this question. What's also true is we have to do our part to ensure that we're creating value, both perceived value and tangible value. The way that we create perceived value in the minds of the consumer are things like online reviews, like websites, like sending them a bomb video before you go and see them on the appointment. Real tangible value are things like, Matterport camera, things like staging, things that actually have real value for the consumer that will help them to accomplish their goals and objectives and also cost money. So if we've done our part in those two areas and we've created perceived value, when they ask you this at the listing appointment, what do you say? Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to isolate the objection. Right? There's nothing more deflating than answering an objection and there be another one right behind it. So I would say something like, yeah, that's a wonderful question. And I promise you that that's something that won't be a reason why we don't do business. I'm sure we'll come up with something that's mutually beneficial to all parties. I want you to make this decision based on who you feel is most competent, professional, has the best track record, the best reviews. And once that you decide that that's me, I know we'll be able to work that out. So my question to you would be, is if we can come to an agreement in terms of the professional fee, which I know we will, do you think there'd be any other reason why we couldn't get started today? And if they say, well, no, I think that's it. Say, okay, great. Well, what were you thinking? Now we're in the midst of negotiating. I want them to speak first. And let's say they say something like, 4.5%. Now, I'm very well aware that all commissions are negotiable. At the same time, we have some kind of standards of what we're accustomed to as agents. What I'm also aware of is in different geographic areas, what's customary is different. Let's say the standard in your geographic area is somewhere between 5 and 6, and they say, hey, I was thinking 4.5%. You say, okay, great. Well, from my perspective, I would never want to put you in a situation that wasn't beneficial to you as a homeowner. Can I explain to you what I mean? And they say, well, sure. The professional fee is one of the tools that we use to market the property as far as what we offer out to another agent if they can find us a buyer that's ready, willing, and able to purchase. Because agents, they don't control what people buy, but they definitely have influence over what they see. Let's imagine for a moment that you were a full-time commission-based salesperson and there were 10 properties that were available for sale and 8 of them were offering out what was customary, so something like 2.5 or more. And there was a handful, like 2 other properties that were offering out less than that. I mean, honestly, as a full-time commission-based salesperson, which properties would you be more excited about showing and selling? So the professional fee on the listing side for us to list the property is, and here's where you state what you feel like you're worth and what you would like to be compensated for the time, energy, effort, and resources that you're putting in. So really all we're talking about is what we're going to be offering out to another agent if they can find us a buyer that's ready, willing, and able to purchase. And we have a couple of options that are at our disposal. The first option is that we offer out less than what's customary. That could end up affecting showings, which ultimately could end up affecting how much we get for the property. The second approach is where we offer out what's customary, at least 2.5%, maybe a little bit more. The logic behind that strategy is we broaden the exposure and we increase the probability that we can get as many showings as possible and ultimately end up with an offer that's the most that somebody's willing to pay. The question is based on what you're looking to accomplish and why, which one do you think would serve you and your family best? and then you're quiet. Well, can't you just make an adjustment on your side? And you say, well, I appreciate that. And I certainly see where you're coming from. I guess what I'm aware of is one of my concerns would be whether it's me or any other agent that you hire for the job is you're hiring them based on your skills in negotiating. Because they're going to be having conversations about your price without you being present. Have you considered that? You know, how are you going to feel knowing that you hired an agent based on their skills in negotiating and they demonstrate right in front of you the inability to protect the value of their own fee? I mean, you want somebody that's going to be very diligent and proactively polite and aggressive, fighting for you tooth and nail to help you get every penny possible for your home, don't you? Yeah, you know what the great news is, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? You found what you're looking for. Let's go ahead and proceed and take care of the appropriate paperwork. So this is a sequence that you can use when on presentations, when somebody asks you the professional fee, how much is the commission, and kind of the commission objection. You can be comfortable with it. You can be open, ultimately end up with more agreements signed and more sellers that are happy because you are going to be the one that helps them to accomplish their goals and objectives and get top dollars. So I hope this was helpful to you. We hopped on a call with people who make $1 million a month via social media. The first thing they told us is, your thumbnails suck.
I find it totally obnoxious.
So there's something internally for you that doesn't like people.